round number 7, which is in a sense me pulling this together. Where has it led us? Why do we have this disastrous decline in effectiveness, despite all of the good stuff that I've managed to squeeze in between the moaning and the ranting? Well, what we've ended up with in the UK and globally, I know this is true in your market, I know it's true in the Australian marketplace, I'm pretty damn certain it's true in the US marketplace, is an immensely destructive and very considerable overweighting of activation activity. Now, back in 2013, when Les and I published Long and the Short of it, we said the ideal balance was 60-40. 60% of our budget should be spent on brand building, 40% on activation. And if we stray very far either side of that, the penalties are quite severe. Effectiveness drops off very rapidly either side of that. You know, guys in digital said, oh, that's so last millennium, Peter, forget it. So we're going to update this right now. This is the very latest data that we can look at. We're just looking at 2016 cases here. So this is absolutely contemporary data. We're going to look at 4 different metrics, and we're going to look at what the top performers on each of those metrics did in the sense of spreading their budget between brand and activation. Brand in green, activation in red. And you can see that the case studies that drove the biggest market share growth spent about 60-40 brand and activation, perhaps a little bit more than 60-40. 3 other metrics, the most efficient case studies, those that built the brand most strongly, and those that drove the biggest profit growth, all about 60-40 or perhaps even a bit higher than that. The 60-40 rule is absolutely alive and well, and don't believe anyone who says otherwise. We really should be spending it in that proportion for all sorts of very good reasons. So how does short-termism affect this? Well, you can probably predict this. This is a bit of a no-brainer. What do short-term case studies do? Well, they don't spend 60% of their budget on brand building. They spend about 46% on average. And this represents an enormous transfer of money, billions of pounds and dollars, out of brand building into activation simply because we're chasing the short term. Worryingly, even long-term campaigns have slipped back from the ideal 60-40 or perhaps 60 and a bit 40. Even they have started to drift away from this because of this relentless drive to achieve short-term effects. So I could show you, I was going to just show you actually how the market divides. I could use IPA data, but this is a more reliable data set. This is a much bigger study done by the Enders consultancy, Enders Analysis, and they pull together enormous amounts of data from lots of sources to decide on how the UK advertising pie is split between their language display, my language brand building, their language direct response, my language activation. And back when sanity still prevailed in 2000, it's about 60-40, about 60-40. This is what they reckon the situation is now. This is yet to be published. It'll be out later. So this report, I think we should all read. So again, this is a massive transfer of money. If you think about the dollars and pound size involved with this. Enormous transfer of money from long-term brand building into short-term sales activation. It's going on an industrial scale. So what it's led to, of course, is that some channels are now underfunded. And the way I'm going to explore this is to say, what happens if we put more of our budget into this medium than the median line, than the typical case study did? Do we build effectiveness if we put greater commitment of our budget into that medium, or do we reduce effectiveness? If we increase effectiveness, then it's an underfunded channel. So brand TV, those case studies that put above median percentage of their budget into TV enjoyed a very considerably improved level of effectiveness. It's an underfunded medium now already. Far too much money has been pulled out of TV in the UK to fund a lot of very dubious short-term digital stuff particularly. I'll come back to that point in a minute. In fact, online video is also underfunded. We can get benefits by putting more money into online video as well, because video is underfunded. It's all about the long term, and we're all too obsessed with the short term. Some channels are, we might say, fully funded. The jury's still out on them. Some metrics say that we're overspending on social. Others say we're probably spending about the right amount of money. I think the decision is all about, can social prove that it is more than just an activation medium? We all know lots of great case studies where social has been used as an activation tool. As it becomes more of a video tool, it needs to prove to us that it can work in the brand building domain and deserve access to that 60% of our budget that should be spent on brand building. I think they should prove it to us before we spend another dollar with these guys, frankly, because we've had a lot of dubious metrics and questionable thinking in the past, and I think the onus is on them to prove it. But also we've got some overfunded channels, online non-video. We should be pulling money out of online non-video. We're spending too much. And of course, our good old friend search. I'm not saying we shouldn't be spending on search. It's a brilliant activation medium. But I'm saying we are already in the UK and in New Zealand spending far too much on search, chasing short-term effects. It's a fantastic activation medium, but we're becoming far too wedded to it. It doesn't drive long-term success. Let's just look at some of the numbers. This is PwC data. Surprisingly, it's quite difficult to get hold of exact spend on something like search. But anyway, they've done their homework. And this is 18 months out of date already, this data, because it's difficult to get hold of the latest stuff. They said that search had passed the £2 billion per 6 month in the UK back then. It is almost certainly already bigger than TV as a source of expenditure in the UK. And if you think about it, that is crazy. We're spending more on bidding for that essential last click in the decision-making process, that last moment of the decision-making process at the bottom of the sales funnel, than we are spending on the most proven brand-building medium that there is to feed the funnel at the top. It's crazy. All my analysis says 60-40, and we're spending these vast sums of money now just doing the search piece. Are you guys any smarter than we are? No, you're just as dumb as we are in the UK. It's running out of control in this market. $500 million in 2016 on search. And yours seems to be exponentially growing, which at least ours isn't. No. Okay. So this is a big worry. You know, I'm not anti-search. I'm anti-search on the scale that it's going on at the moment. So how do we fight back? How do we fight back? And I could show you a number of case studies. For instance, the EasyJet case study, which was all about driving down search expenditure from 30% to 7% over a 4-year period, because they realized that it was a bottomless pit, essentially wasted money. And the way we fight back is by building the brand for the long term. And if we do that, we get more out of our search spend anyway, but we don't have to rely on search so much because we're feeding the funnel. So here's a lovely example of that. Direct Line, it was a pioneer of direct sell insurance in the UK during the 80s and 90s, but found itself essentially being killed by the aggregators, you know, the price comparison websites. And of course, it's a search-driven category here, and these guys can dominate that end of the funnel. So Direct Line really had a choice to just try and fight this out through search expenditure, pay-per-click stuff, or to get back to building a really strong brand. They had been running TV in the past, it kind of lost its way, it wasn't really working. So they got back to saying that we've got to invest in the brand. Otherwise, we will not win this battle against the aggregators. We can't win it. We've got to restore the whole reason why people buy brands in this category, and that's what this campaign does. It's all about, you know, a famous character, but it's all about saying we are a brand that, you know, kind of kicks ass, and that you need us on your side. Don't waste time with the aggregators. Come to a brand that matters. Here's one of the early ads for car insurance.
Winston Wolf, I'm here to help. And this is your car called Randy, correct?
Yeah, and I'd like to get my hands on whoever did this.
I can make them disappear.
Disappear?
I mean the dents. Now, Laura, do me a favor. Send me photographs to my people. They'll take the car in and fix it within 7 days, or someone will pay.
What?
Direct Line will pay you £10 a day until the job is done.
Okay, so there's a lot of information inside, but what made this campaign so successful, as you can see from this chart, is the brand building element of this. It's restoring confidence in the brand. And these guys could have just tried to slug it out through ever increasing search expenditure, but they were smart enough not to do it, and it's been a great success story for them. And this is the way we have to wean ourselves off the drug of search. Get back to investing in brand. Okay, I've rabbited on for long enough. I'm just going to wrap with some conclusions. You won't be surprised when I say that fundamentally what I'm saying to you here today is that we need to return to a much more balanced perspective on long versus short-term objectives. We're becoming hopelessly short-term, and it will kill brands and it will kill businesses if we don't start putting this right now. We're doing real long-term damage already. Doing that means that we need to maintain a broad reach in our marketing. Mass marketing is alive and well, and it is absolutely critical to the success of large brands, mass market brands. You've seen evidence that I've shown to you that the activation brand building pendulum has swung far too far away from brand building and towards activation, possibly to a 50-50 level. We certainly need to remember the 60-40 rule. It's alive and well, and that really should govern how we deploy our budgets if we want long-term success. And that means dialing up brand building instead of activation. We need more activation media like I Need a Hole in the Head, and that's especially the case with newer channels. When we turn to digital channels, it's video over non-video we should be valuing, and of course we should be valuing TV over non-video media as an inevitable quid pro quo of that. But also we need to get back to designing and putting money into the kinds of campaigns that build long-term growth, those powerfully emotive, stature-building kind of campaigns that may seem unfashionable today, but they are what drives long-term growth. The Diageo Guinness initiative, I think I absolutely applaud. Let's stop trying to squeeze the pips and get back to building value for brands with powerful advertising. But of course, we also need the metrics that go with it. And if we carry on measuring success in the short term, using short-term evaluation timeframes, we will never succeed. Thank you very much. Enough ranting from me.